providing extensive coverage of the Chicago Bears for the Bear Report website. The podcast is powered by Overtime Media. Now, here's Zach and Aaron.
Scales down the ball. O'Donnell to Holt from the right hash. Angle to the left. Good placement. Boot by Eddie Pinheiro. Kick to the uprights. And the kick is good for the win. Pinheiro with the De Niro kick to send Denver down as time expires. Bears 16, Denver 14. They escape with the victory on the road.
And welcome into the Bear Report podcast, broadcasting live from the Vivid Seats studio. That audio clip you just heard was the Bears' mile-high miracle, Eddie Pinheiro drilling a 53-yard field goal to avoid an 0-2 start for the Bears this season. Instead, they are 1-1. I'm one of your co-hosts, Zach Pearson. I am joined, as always, by Aaron Lemming. Man, Aaron, after listening to that clip, how fired up does that get you with Pinheiro draining that 53-yarder, man?
Let me just say one thing. Thank the Lord Jesus Christ. I know that might offend a certain Chicago Tribune columnist. I can't even remember the guy's name right now that wrote some ridiculous column today. It's like, I don't know, man. I thought the kick was awesome. It's like everybody believes different things, whatever. But that article, man, that kind of blew my mind a little bit. But on the plus side, the Bears have a freaking kicker, man. Like I almost
about damn time.
Yeah, right. So it's like. And I don't know how you were, and like I said, this wasn't a hindsight move at all, but I don't know how you were, but when they got in the field goal position and I saw it was a 53-yarder, I was like, I think Pinheiro's got this. Like, I actually, for whatever reason, I wasn't that nervous. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I was a little nervous. I can't lie and say I wasn't, just because, of what happened last season, and this was his biggest kick so far of his whole entire career. I mean, this was it. This was money in the line, 1 second left, but when he drained it, I felt really confident as I was going through. Right when it lost his foot, I was like, okay, yep. It looks like a good kick. It's going to go in, and thank goodness it went in.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I tweeted something, I think it was like Monday, so I guess it was yesterday. It feels like a much longer week than just Tuesday right now. But I tweeted something out yesterday. It basically said, the difference between 31 seconds and a 53-yard field goal is massive for the Bears right now. I had predicted the Bears to lose the game, so I'm 0-2 on my pick so far this year. So that's nice. At least I got that going for me, I guess. But it was more one of those things I expected the Bears to lose. But if they would have lost the way that they lost, pretty much leading almost the entire game, and then all of a sudden giving the lead up with 31 seconds left to go and losing on a 2-point conversion like that, and especially with as gassed as his defense was. I don't know, man. Like I really think that would have been it. I mean, historically speaking, teams that go 0-2 anyway, that start off 0-2, have a 13% chance of making the playoffs. Yes, the Colts did that last year. They actually went not the Colts, sorry. I think it was the Texans. Yeah, the Texans went 0-3 to start off last year. They made the playoffs at 11-5. But usually, I mean, those are the outlier situations, and this is going all the way back to 1990, which 13% of the teams that make the playoffs start off with an 0-2 record. So to say that a 1-1 start, it's almost kind of like last year. Like, I mean, there's some similarities to last year in my mind, because I think when you're really kind of looking at this and you're kind of diagnosing what's going on, I mean, it hasn't been pretty. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. I mean, obviously the Bears only gave up 14 points. They gave up one touchdown, but at the same time, I didn't think their defense really played that well. Obviously, we'll get to that, the offense and all that stuff, but again, I don't think I can overstate the importance of how big of a win that was for the Bears. One, because they know they have a field goal kicker. Two, because Trubisky actually did something positive, which is nice. And then three, just because, again, they're not starting off 0-2. They're now 1-1. They've got the Redskins. They've got the Vikings at home, which they've historically done very well against. And then they have the Raiders going, before going into the bye week, and even out of the bye week, they have a New Orleans team that's probably not going to have Drew Brees. So, I mean, the reality is, I mean, even for as bad as they played to this point so far, I mean, I'd say 3-2, 4-1 going to the bye is still somewhat realistic. And like I said, at least 3-2. I mean, and that still puts them in decent shape. Obviously, the Packers have looked pretty good. The Vikings have been kind of uneven, and the Lions have been surprisingly decent as well. But the Bears are still in this thing, and I think that's the most important thing right now. Going 0-2 would have really kind of, I only say kind of, it would have almost all but pretty much killed the playoff hopes, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the difference between, with that kick, if he misses that kick, they're 0-2. The morale is probably down. Yeah, you might say the defense gets a little more frustrated with the offense's performance. Matt Nagy's, answering even more questions about the offense and what the heck went on. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad he made that kick, because getting to 1-1 with another road game coming up is huge. And like you said, now you're looking down the line to week 5 and 6. After the bye week, after they go to London. I mean, there's possibility they could be 4-1, 3-2. There's also the possibility they could be 2-3, or heck, even 1-4. But I mean, yeah, it was huge, and just for the way that how it all went down, where the defense just looked gassed in that fourth quarter. I mean, they were on the field, I believe it was 35 snaps in the fourth quarter alone. And I kind of did a quick time of possession in the fourth quarter. The Bears defense was on the field 11 plus minutes out of the 15, which is insane, because granted, the offense couldn't establish a drive, and that final drive was only 30 seconds. So I think the offense had 3 drives in the fourth quarter, maybe 2. I think 1 bled into the fourth or something like that. But it was just, the drive they had to kind of put it away before that they could have put it away. They failed miserably on. I think they went 3 and out. They had a short completion on third down. But yeah, man, Eddie Pinheiro, the stones on that guy, it's just great, because you and I talked all offseason. It seems like every podcast episode, it was a kicker update. What's going on with the kicker? The Bears ever going to find a kicker? And then finally, Eddie Pinheiro delivers. He's 4 for 4. He's got I think it's 2 field goals of 50 plus already in the year. And this is a crazy stat. He's actually got 2. He's the first Bears kicker since 2011 to have 2 field goals of 50 plus yards in the same game. I know it was Robbie Gould who did it for the Bears last time in 2011. I think Kevin Butler did it once in 1990. And it's just, if you look back all these years, hitting those 50-yard field goals is kind of underrated. Not a lot of people think about the kicking game, but I mean, that's huge. To have a kicker go out there and be able to drain a 53-yarder and a 52-yarder, I mean, that's definitely big for his confidence, but also the entire team and coaching as well.
Well, and to kind of feed off that point a little bit, I'm kind of curious to get your perspective on this, because even in real time, I was sitting there thinking, it's like you pointed out, the Bears defense was on the field for over 11 minutes in that fourth quarter. They didn't look good. They looked gassed. I mean, obviously, it was expected. I mean, you're talking about elevate. We talked about this. Elevation was going to be an issue for the Bears. There's a reason that the Broncos were 51-8-2 since the merger in 1972 at home during the first 2 games of the season. I mean, there was a reason for that, and it's usually because it's still hot, it's a little humid, and the elevation is just a big factor. And the Bears' offense crapped the bed. I mean, they had 2 different opportunities where they could have easily have done something with those drives to keep their defense off the field. They didn't do it. But this is a question I have for you, because this is something I've been thinking about, kind of with that in mind, with the time of possession and how exhausted the defense was. I actually think that Vic Fangio did the Bears a big favor by going for that 2-point conversion, because I personally believe, and I want to get your perspective on this. I personally believe that if Brandon McManus would have kicked the extra point before all the craziness happened, if you just kick the extra point, it goes through. They're tied up at 13. I think that the Bears take it easy. They go into overtime, and much like that Miami game, I don't think they win it. I mean, am I wrong for feeling that way? Because it just felt like they were trending that way.
I agree. I agree 100%. He makes that kick. The Bears are sitting on the ball 3 times, going into overtime, playing for overtime, and then I think they lose. I think it's gonna be the exact way. I think either Flacco marches them down the field, or the Bears get the ball first and maybe go 3 and out, or can't sustain a drive, and Denver comes down and it'd just be so perfect. They'd come down and kick like a 61-yarder to win and send the Bears to 0-2. So yeah, I mean, I agree. I think Fangio did a favor there, and I mean, I guess you can kind of credit Buster Skrine there for going off sides.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, it was just it was a really weird thing, because it was, what was it originally? It was a false start, and then Skrine goes off sides. But it's one of those things, like, I don't know if I'm going to credit Skrine going off sides, because it's like McManus missed the kick. I mean, they could have gone for the onside kick afterwards, and maybe could have got it, but I don't. The likelihood of that happening was much less.
It's under like 7% chance.
Exactly. So I mean, Yeah, I don't know. It was just one of those weird situations. But again, I'm just glad that Fangio went for it, push it, which is, I understand he's a first-year coach. He's trying to get the win at home. But that's not usually a move that home teams make. Usually it's the road teams that will make those calls late in the game like that because they don't want to go on overtime at in an opposing stadium. So I thought it was kind of a weird call. But again, I think it benefited the Bears because, again, if they missed a kick or they missed a 2-point conversion, the Bears win the game. And then obviously because they still had 31 seconds left, they were able to go down and, Trubisky had the big throw. They got down and Eddie Pinheiro won the game. But, man, I'll tell you what, it was a wave of emotion. I don't know how your phone was and how your mentions were on Twitter, but I was getting texts left and right. People are freaking out. The season's over. Nagy needs to go. Trubisky's done. This is stupid. I can't believe this team. How could they, and then it was all of a sudden I didn't respond back to any of it because it's just like at that point I was having similar thoughts in terms of, well, this season's over and what the hell happened? And then all of a sudden they go back down the field and they, obviously they win the game. But it was amazing the roller coaster of emotions going from, the Bears were up 10 points. They were up 13-3 at one point. And it looked like they had full control of the game, and then all of a sudden you kind of start seeing things slip away a little bit. You saw that the defense just pretty much fell flat on their face because they were exhausted. The other thing I kind of want to point out before we move on from this subject in general is just that I don't think that this is a game that the Bears would have won this time last year. I really don't, and I think that we kind of saw it even from Trubisky last year in Week 1, where they had a similar opportunity against the Packers in Week 1, and they didn't do it, and even really against Miami. And I think there's a multitude of different levels that kind of go into this. One is obviously having the right kicker in Pinheiro, and then obviously two is just the fact that they're a little bit more experienced. I think they're a little bit more resilient. And for as negative as this season has started, or for as questionable as it has been so far, they really haven't looked that good. I also think that Bears fans should take some solace in knowing that this team is more experienced. They have the talent. Obviously you got to hope they get things figured out on offense, and that's something we'll touch on. But it's one of those. They're going to be one of those teams that, regardless of if they lose a game, it's still not going to be an easy. It's not going to be an easy win for another team. And I think that throughout the season, some of these close wins that they have, some of these close games, and as long as they pull out the wins, I actually think it's going to be big for them. And if they do get back into the playoffs, if they're facing another situation, not only at least as of right now, they'll be able to trust their kicker, Eddie Pinheiro. But two, there'll be a little bit more confidence from the fan base knowing that the Bears can come back and win games, and they can do it with a short amount of time. That's you don't see that kind of drive from bad teams.
No, like what Matt Nagy said in his post-game speech, all we need is 1 second in the ball, and we're going to win. And that's exactly what happened. They got the 1 second. Very heads up by Trubisky. You can say he played bad, which is true. I think he did play bad against the Broncos. Well, okay, I'll get into that later, but the alertness to kind of make that, to step up in the pocket, find Robinson, know, okay, I got to call timeout with 1 second left. And the NFL reviewed it. They said it was correct. They should have had 1 second left. No matter how much Derek Wolfe and Vic Fangio want to say there was not 1 second left, the NFL actually said there's 1 second left. But even, look at that drive. Okay, they got aided by the pass interference penalty, which was not a roughing the passer, which was not roughing the passer. But the Bears also had two that didn't go their way either. And then to not use your timeout right away. And they had still that timeout in their back pocket. I think the first two attempts are right to the sideline, which is exactly what you have to do. And I have no idea why the Broncos are not playing the sideline there. I get it. The Bears do have one timeout, and you still got to play the middle. But it felt like the Broncos were just big cushion, let them have the sideline, and I guess it kind of backfired, and thank God the Bears did have that one timeout to kind of hold them. But I agree there that this team. What was that?
Are you surprised? Are you really surprised that a Vic Fangio defense?
That's true.
Would lay back in a big situation. It happened all the time with the Bears. I think a lot of people forget that about Vic Fangio.
Yeah, it did. You're right, and I guess it shouldn't come to a surprise. And the other thing too, I want to get your thought on this really quick before we get into something else here. Where was the line? You know how Fox does that green target line for Pinheiro? I think they kept saying it was 55 yards or whatever his distance. I think the Bears would have trotted him out there from 62, 63. I came to that.
You have to. I think they would have got probably right about the 42, 43 yard line. You stick them out there because, one, you're playing at Mile High where every kicker in the world has probably an extra 4 or 5 yards.
Exactly. I felt like that line that Fox had, this is just nitpicking. I felt like it was like not even like, it was just like very generous to like, it was a shorter field goal than I expected, you know, because it's like, it's always, you have to get here for his range. And I felt like that line was like a 50-yarder or like 45 to 50 yards, which was really short for me.
What was the line even based on? Because that was the thing I kept seeing it too. I'm like,
yeah.
what are they basing that on?
It's got to be like career. It has to be career long and like career averages because
but,
I mean,
Pinero's had one going.
That's
at least
what
going into that game. You only had one NFL kick, so
that's what I think it was. That's why I think it was so close. It felt just super close to me. Like it felt like it shouldn't have been because the Bears obviously they're not going to put it to make it like a 63-yarder the line. They're going to probably put it at the 55, 56. It was kind of odd, but yeah, I mean, I definitely think Pinero goes out there for a 63-yarder, 64-yarder, and
he made it. Well,
he had 4 or 5
spares by any means, but it looked like he could have probably hit from 65 plus with the amount of distance he had on that kick.
Yeah, he had plenty to spare there. So yeah, I mean that was huge, man. It was. My phone, like yours, my phone was going off, and I have to kind of keep track on the chat and like Twitter and all this stuff. And I didn't really answer anyone's text or anything, even the not the congratulatory ones. I don't play, but even the ones that were like very excited from friends and family. It was crazy. It was a crazy, final game minute there. It was unbelievable. But let's actually get into our 3 topics. Before we do that, we're going to get into a break, our first one of the show. And just a reminder, if you're planning on going to any Chicago Bears games this season, use the promo code OVERTIME in the Vivid Seats mobile app to save up to $100 on all ticket purchases. The Bears return home to play the Minnesota Vikings in Week 4 before going to London and having their buys. If you want to get out there and check out a game at Soldier Field, use that code OVERTIME to save you some money. Let's get to our first break. We'll be right back with our 3 news topics of the week.
Okay, if you found $100 on the street, would you pick it up or keep walking? Of course you'd take the money. So why do you keep picking winners and not betting on them? That's why I go to MyBookie. It's fast, it's easy, and they pay when you win. Let's face it, where you're betting is just as important as who you're betting on. I wouldn't be telling you guys to bet with them if they weren't the best. Do the smart thing. If you're going to bet this football season, bet with MyBookie. Did you know that you could bet on games after kickoff? By the second half, it looks like your bet is going to lose. You can always just take the other side. If you're the kind of guy that likes to bet a little and win a lot, try a parlay. If all your picks come through, you'll multiply your winnings. And no matter how you bet, the NFL season is the best time of the year. Join now and MyBookie will double your first deposit. Use promo code OVERTIME to activate the offer. That's promo code OVERTIME. Visit mybookie.ag today. You play, you win, you get paid.
And welcome back into the Bear Report podcast. We're going to get into our 3 headlines for the show. Can be anything from the Bears to the NFL. We like to mix it in a little bit. The first one, Aaron, some news out of House Hall today. The media was not there, but Brad Biggs is reporting that the Bears had 4 players in for a tryout today, 4 edge rushers to be specific. Former first-round pick Shane Ray of the Broncos, Noah Spence, Nate Orchard, and Dakota Watson. I'm going to guess which 2 names pretty much stand out to you right away, but should we take anything from this? You think the Bears, in your eyes, will make a move to maybe add some depth on the edge?
I mean, they could afford to do so. It is a little interesting just because we know Bilal Nichols has what probably amounts to a broken wrist is what Matt Nagy said. So
hand injury, something.
Yeah, I think he like specifically pointed out the wrist because I thought it was interesting because I was thinking hand, okay, you club it up, you're good to go. Wrist, he did obviously that's a little bit different, but you'd almost kind of wonder or almost kind of think that maybe they'd be looking at adding some some depth on the defensive line, but I mean, looking at outside linebacker, they've done a pretty good amount of rotation so far this year. I mean, you got to look at it and just see. I mean, the Isaiah Irving's been out on the field a decent amount. Aaron Lynch has been out on the field a decent amount. I'm not against that at all, by the way. I'm not knocking that whatsoever because I actually think it's very smart, and that's something I've been pushing for with Akeem Hicks for a while that Vic Fangio never really did was you got to keep these guys fresh because you shouldn't just be looking at a 16-game season. You shouldn't just be saying, well, you just got to keep them fresh for 16. You got to be hoping for the playoffs. I mean, but I think with the outside linebackers, edge rushers, whatever you want to call them, I think it's smart. I mean, I know a lot of people seem to be like really over the moon with Shane Ray. I don't see it with him personally. I was much more interested in Noah Spence. Maybe it was just because I really liked Noah Spence coming out of the draft, and it came out the same year as Leonard Floyd. But it's one of those things. I think it's key to keep in mind that there's a reason that these guys are not on teams right now. I mean, edge rushers don't grow on trees for teams, so the fact that none of these guys have been picked up probably says all it needs to. But I mean, there's still some interesting names, and it wouldn't surprise me if one, they're just kind of updating the rosters like they normally do. I mean, usually teams have tryouts on a weekly basis, usually around this time. But at the same time, I mean, it's kind of one of those, maybe they're not as happy with their edge depth as we think they are. I mean, I think Aaron Lynch has 1 sack, and I don't think Isaiah Irving's really done much of anything. And they're only carrying, sorry about that, and they're only carrying 4 on the active roster right now. So, I mean, and at least last I checked, James Vaughters isn't on the practice squad anymore. So, I mean, it could be one of those, they're updating the roster and kind of waiting to see, if an injury happens or whatever, maybe they're looking to make a move. Maybe they're not comfortable with depth. I don't know. But, I mean, either way, there's at least some interesting names there.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. And also the thing, the Bears weren't going to make a move in week 1 because of the short week with Green Bay. So I was kind of shocked they didn't make a move last week. Essentially, I mean, they did call up from the practice squad and let go of James Vaughters. But, I don't think you're going to stash Shane Ray in the practice squad. But you do have a point, though. I mean, a lot of these guys are not on a team for a reason. So it'll be curious to see if one of these guys sticks and if the Bears are trying to add some depth on the edge position, because they are carrying how many inside linebackers? 6, right?
Yeah, they still got 6, which still makes no sense to me. And I'm pretty sure they've all been active for the most part. I think at least 5 to 6 have been active each week. Yeah,
and to your rotation point, I do like what the Bears are doing, and I think Aaron Lynch has been pretty good this year. I don't know if it's maybe just me. I haven't noticed a bad play from him yet, and I think he's been in on a sack and had maybe a couple pressures. But yeah, we'll have to see if the Bears do make a move with one of these guys. Obviously, Ray and Noah Spence, the 2 big names there that are kind of intriguing for everyone. They did their draft homework when they were coming out as edge rushers. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. The other thing, we'll go into our second topic here. Let's go more NFL-wise. It seems like everyone is just trying to demand a trade and get a trade out, and they want to win. I understand you want to win, but we saw Minkah Fitzpatrick get traded from Miami to Pittsburgh for a first-round pick. The Dolphins now 3 first-round picks. That they look like they're going to go for 1 and 15, 2 and 14, and probably have the number 1 pick in the draft. They could have 2 first-round picks when it's all said and done, or 2 top 10 picks in the first round when it's all said and done at the end of the season. But now, Jaguars defensive back Jalen Ramsey wants a trade and wants to get out of Jacksonville. And the asking price is reportedly at least a first-round pick. And there's been 1 AFC and 1 NFC team, according to a report out today. And then I also saw something else that a couple accounts were floating around that the Bears would be interested. No, the Bears are not going to be interested in Jalen Ramsey. They're not going to give up any draft capital for Jalen Ramsey, and they're not going to be able to pay him after that. So it's pointless. Aaron, what are your thoughts on these guys kind of asking out for trades and how it's kind of gone down now? And even Jamal Adams is rumored to – well, he unfollowed the Jets on Instagram, so I don't really know if it's a report out yet that he wants to leave New York or what's going on. But what are your thoughts on this, what's going on in the NFL right now with these defensive backs?
I mean, I think I'm always going to side more with the players. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where people can say, well, these guys need to stick out their contracts, blah, blah, blah. I don't particularly agree with that, and I don't agree with that for one reason, because if that was the case, then why aren't all players getting fully guaranteed contracts? And, it's easy from a team to move on from a player and nobody questions it. But when a player wants to move on from a team, then all of a sudden it's a bigger issue. What I will say just specifically about some of these guys, the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade makes no sense to me, period. Minkah Fitzpatrick is a really damn good player with a lot of good versatility. He's also going into his second year and was a high pick last year. And the Miami Dolphins are in the middle of a rebuild. Why are you trading one of your best defensive players? That doesn't make any sense to me. You're in the middle of a rebuild. That's the kind of guy that you want to hold on to. Then for the Steelers, I'm looking at it and I'm saying, why are you trading for a defensive back when your starting quarterback is out for the entire year and you've got Mason Rudolph starting at quarterback and you're 0-2? Like, your season's probably already done. I mean, we already went over the whole 0-2 thing and all that stuff, and I'm sorry, but I don't see how a 0-2 Steelers team without their starting quarterback, without Le'Veon Bell, without Antonio Brown and all the other stuff that's gone on. It's not like they were a playoff team last year either. They actually choked down the stretch. I mean, I just don't see how they're going to be a playoff team, especially with the way the Ravens are looking. I think the Browns are going to get better. It just doesn't make any sense. But I think with like guys like Jalen Ramsey, I mean, it's kind of one of those things like him and Doug Marrone got into it on the sideline on Sunday. Like they went after each other on the sideline, and usually at that point when that happens, it's done. Jalen Ramsey's a very flamboyant personality. He's a lot like a lot of players in this league, like an Antonio Brown, guys like that, where he's very like I said. I mean, the best way to describe it is he's very flamboyant. Some people will say ignorant. Some people will say fun. I mean, he's just a very loud guy, but he's an excellent player. He's one of the top corners in the league. But again, like you pointed out, especially when you're looking at it from maybe a Bears perspective, you're talking about a guy that is going to command huge money. The Bears can't afford to pay that. That's the thing. I think this is kind of a nice little reminder to some Bears fans that, no, the Bears aren't going to be in on a lot of these guys because they just made their move last year with a guy like Khalil Mack. They still got to play. They still have to pay players. They still need to figure out if Mitchell Trubisky is going to be their quarterback of the future because obviously that brings up a whole nother thing. We don't need to get into any of that because it's too early to talk about that. But there's still some questions there for the Bears in terms of who they need to pay, all that stuff. And they don't really have that much money to begin with. Yeah, they still have $18 million. A lot of that's going to be rolled over into next year because they're tied against cap again. It doesn't make any sense for the Bears. But again, my overall thought on just these players demanding trades in general is, again, it's easy for a team to trade a player and make that decision to trade a player. It's easy for a team to say, you know what, we're going to cut a player like Aaron Colvin, for example, that just happened with Jacksonville. He still had, I think it was like $9 or $10 million guaranteed left on his contract that he just signed last year. And there's all sorts of players that get cut all the time that, again, the team has control. The team's the one making the decision. So why are we faulting players for making that same decision, especially when you're looking at Miami? I mean, you said you think they may be 1-15, 2-14. If they continue to play the way that they're playing right now, they're not going to win a game. They're easily going to go down as the worst team in NFL history. And the Jaguars have been a sinking ship since last year. So I don't know if I particularly blame Ramsey either.
Here's why I say 1-15 for the Dolphins. They still have 2 games against the Jets, and I think the Jets are awful too. So I think Miami's got a chance to squeak one out. But I'm with you. I think Miami's going to have the number 1 pick. The Jets will be right behind them at number 2 or number 3. And those 2 teams are just a mess. I mean, an absolute mess. So, yeah, I actually understood the trade more from the Dolphins side than I obviously did from the Steelers side. I could get the angle of, we're trying to rebuild. But like you said, Minka Fitzpatrick was just taken the first round. Literally. I mean, not that long ago. So, if you're going to rebuild, you want to keep a corner like that, you're going to need something on your defense to build around. However, if you are going to rebuild and you want to stock the first-round picks, I can kind of get it. I absolutely cannot get it from Pittsburgh's side. I mean, they're the third best team in that division. Maybe the Bengals might be better than them too, as with Mason Rudolph at quarterback. So, I don't get it because the Steelers are going to need a quarterback as well down the road. I think this injury to Big Ben could, potentially end his career, or if not, he'll be done within 2 years anyway. I really don't think Mason Rudolph's a guy. I mean, feel free to prove me wrong. Go ahead. But if you're going to have to draft a quarterback, you're going to need those first-round picks. So that was just an awful, awful trade in my eyes for the Steelers. Let's go into our third topic, and this is going to kind of lead into the Bears game on Monday night, and we'll kind of get our preview on that too. Have you seen this? So it's from the Fan DC, and it's kind of talking about how the Redskins have had, a hard time getting their own fans into the stadium and being super loud. And the latest example was last Sunday's game, week 2, when the Dallas Cowboys were in town, and it was just a sea of blue at FedEx Field. That's actually how the article starts. It was a sea of blue at FedEx Field on Sunday, and they interviewed Redskins tackle Morgan Moses about, did you notice that the stadium was pretty much filled with Cowboy fans? And he goes, obviously it's hard when you're playing a home game and the away team is outnumbering you in fans, which is just incredible because the Redskins have a large following. They're not good. It's a big stadium, though. And that kind of gets me to my point now. Monday night could actually feel like a home environment for the Bears. We know Bears fans travel well. Bears fans are all over the country. How wild would that be if Bears fans could fill that stadium to the majority compared to the Redskins?
It honestly wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I just kind of go back to the Arizona game last year that I was actually at. I mean, there were more Bears fans than there were Cardinals fans. And it was amazing. Just some of the even honestly, even the 49ers and Bears, week 16, I was at that game as well, and just talking to different fans, opposing fans, and every single one of them is asking the same question: where the hell did you guys come from? Like we've never seen this, especially for a team like the 49ers. Like 49ers fans are very prideful people. I've got my own thoughts on my dealings with them over the years, especially at Candlestick, but they are very prideful fans. There's a lot of fans. I mean, they definitely, in terms of, at least over there, I would say that they have the upper hand on Raiders fans. It's always kind of been that way to me, at least. But it honestly wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the Bears are still. I mean, they're coming off a 12-4 season. They're 1-1 right now. I think the optimism is still somewhat high. I mean, there's obviously some concern, but the optimism is still high that the Bears are going to be a good team this year. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I've actually seen a few people talk about it on Twitter that they are going to be at the game. So, it wouldn't surprise me. It would be pretty cool. But again, much like the Arizona game last year, I mean, the Bears fans kind of ran that stadium and they barely won that game. So it's going to be weird because, and I guess, I guess I'll let you say what you want to say on it, because I think it kind of leads into a bigger point when we're kind of looking at the historic figures of how the Redskins have done on Monday Night Football, how the Bears have done against the Redskins in recent history. I think it's going to be an interesting game just from that factor because a lot of historic stats are kind of flying in each other's faces right now.
Yeah, it's a road game. It's obviously a road game for the Bears, and it's nationally televised, which Trubisky has struggled in his career so far when it's been the lone primetime game. But I think it's interesting because I think the Bears have a legit shot of that game feeling like a home environment just because of the struggles that the Redskins are having. They're not a good team. A lot of the fans I kind of see are not happy with Dan Snyder as an owner. Maybe there's some protesting going on that they just won't spend the money, won't show up for games to kind of prove their point. That's not gonna bother Dan Snyder at all. He's filthy rich. So yeah, I mean, if Bears fans are out in that area and can take advantage of lower ticket prices in the secondary market or even through the team, definitely go ahead because the more you can make it feel like a Soldier Field environment or a home field environment for the Bears, I mean, I think that definitely impacts them, especially going on the road. If you have your fans there, kind of build off that energy. I haven't really done too much into this article actually just popped up before we started recording, so I haven't really done too much research on how the Redskins home numbers have been over the years with attendance. But I mean, I'm looking at this picture. Jesus, I mean, it's all Cowboys fans in the stands, which is insane. And I think it'll be the same with the Bears. Let's actually, do you want to save those numbers? I know you got the numbers for the primetime games for the Redskins, right?
Yeah. So
do you want to save it you want to hit a break and then go into the preview then?
Yeah, let's do that then. Let's hit a break and then we can just dive right into it and try to spit some positivity on this game and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, let's hit our second break of the show, and we'll be right back with our preview of the Bears-Redskins game.
Finding the right pros for home projects can be tough and spark a lot of questions like, how do I find a pro who can help? Will they do a good job? Will I get a fair price? That's where Home Advisor can help. From leaky faucets to major remodels, Home Advisor connects you to the right pro for the job in seconds and even helps you get a fair price. Read reviews, check project cost guides, and book appointments. Go to homeadvisor.com or download the free Home Advisor app to start your next project.
And welcome back into the Bear Report podcast. Aaron, let's get into this. I kind of want to get, if you had any thoughts on Monday night's game or last Sunday's game with the Bears. I know there's still some concerns about the offense. But yeah, let's get into it. I mean, the Bears are 1-1. They're going into this game against the 0-2 Redskins. It's a road game. This is a game you should win, though. You should be 2-1 coming out of this game, out of the 3 weeks here. What are kind of your opening thoughts on Monday's matchup with the Redskins?
I think it's one of those where I think the Redskins are obviously trending in a rebuilding direction, and the Bears should be trending in the direction of we need to get our crap together, but we're way too good of a team to be playing this badly. I think that's really what this comes down to. So it's weird though, because like I said, this isn't one of those games where, like last week, I kind of pounded home, and obviously I ended up being wrong thanks to that last second field goal, but I kind of pounded home how good the Broncos have been at home in the first 2 weeks of the season. Now I've been looking at some numbers just because I'm always kind of interested in how trends go. And the Redskins at home on Monday Night Football have been terrible since 1998. They're 1-17, which is incredible to me. Like how does that even happen? But what's weird to me is when you actually look at the head-to-head, not counting home and away, but just the head-to-head in general with the Redskins and the Bears. The Redskins have actually owned the Bears. I should say owned the Bears. They've all been very, very close games. Like looking back, basically the last time the Bears beat the Redskins was 2003, and the last time that the Bears beat the Redskins in Washington was 2001. But I mean, just check out some of these scores. You got 13-10, 9-7, 24-16, 17-14. Then you had the one game, and I'm sure everybody remembers the Jay Cutler torn groin game where McCown came in. They traded back and forth. I think it was right after they came out of that bye. It was a 45-41 game. It was a 24-21 game, and then Redskins smoked them last time. But the last time that the Bears beat the Redskins was the game, and I don't know if people will remember this, but it was the game where they did a fake field goal and Brian Urlacher caught the touchdown pass. I mean, that just gives you an idea how long.
2003, right?
2003. That's been how long it's been since the Bears have beat the Redskins in general. So it's one of those. It's weird because, like I said, the trends of the Monday Night Football, especially for them, for the Redskins and all that stuff, and the Bears are 6-1 on Monday Night Football since 2010. I just kind of thought I'd throw that in there as well. So it's just kind of interesting to see the trends and what's going on, and in some ways it'll be kind of interesting to see if the Bears can buck another historic trend in terms of just how bad they've been against the Redskins over basically almost 2 decades now.
Yeah, and actually from those games I do remember. So the 2007 game that the Bears lost, that was I want to make sure I get this right. Yeah, I think that was the first game at home for the Redskins. It was a Thursday night. It was the first game after Sean Taylor's death. It was the first home game. And they lost. It was like a Thursday night game. It was like 24-16. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was who was the quarterback? I can't even think of the quarterback. It was one of the bad ones because Grossman and Orton were both hurt. Or no, maybe it was Grossman. Yeah, and the Bears kind of just blew it. They lost 24-16. And then there was the blowout Christmas Eve a couple years ago where Kirk Cousins just threw all over the Bears. And then they had the John Fox's first year. They were kind of still in playoff contention at the end. I think it was. Was that 2015 or 16, whatever it was?
Yeah, it was 2015 when they lost by 3 points.
Yeah, there was something wacky about that game too, I remember.
They've always been weird games. They've just always been weird games. Somehow Washington always somehow pulls it out. I don't know what it is. Even that McCown game where Cutler tore his groin in 2013.
Yeah, that was the one. Remember Alshon Jeffrey got destroyed on a catch on the sideline? Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
Yeah, he made a deep catch, and I think someone took a late hit on him, and he had to leave the game.
And Merriweather. It was back when Brandon Merriweather.
It was Brandon Merriweather, yes. Oh, I remember that.
He blasted Brandon Marshall in the face in the end zone. He finally got called for a penalty.
Yes, I remember that because I got invited to like a Verizon like meet and greet with Alshon Jeffrey, and it was like 2 days after, and like fans were like allowed to ask questions, and someone asked him about that, and he's like, I forgot what he said, but it was like just kind of odd to see him like ask that question, and like after he like almost got decapitated, I believe it was. But yeah, then they had, you have 2005, the Redskins win 9-7. Then you have 2004, the Redskins win 13-10. Yeah, it's just been odd. It's been an odd series history, but I like the Bears' chances. They're going into the game as favorites, according to Vegas. I like the Bears' chances on Monday night, and it's a primetime game, and you know what that means, right? That means that it's another chance for Mitchell Trubisky to show up and give the national media something positive to talk about because, like you said on the last podcast, you brought this up, Bears fans love to get mad at the national media when they rip Trubisky, but you got to remember the national media is not watching the Sunday 12 o'clock games at Soldier Field or at wherever. They're watching the national games, the Thursday night games. They're watching the Sunday night games. They're watching the Monday night games and the occasional Saturday game that's sprinkled in every couple years. This is another chance for Mitchell Trubisky to give the national media something good to talk about because right now he's been bad. He's been flat out bad. I think he did his job on Sunday as a game manager because what I saw was Matt Nagy saying, "All right, don't screw this up. We're going to put you in situations where you can excel with high percentage throws." He kind of missed a few throws, but they kind of dialed back that playbook. I think this is a chance for them to maybe open it up a little bit. I don't like Washington's secondary. I think you can exploit them. They have good pass rushers, but this is another opportunity for Trubisky to go out there and give the media something positive to talk about.
Well, this is kind of the game that I've pointed to is, if they're going to follow the a similar timeline to last year, right? Last year was week 3 against Arizona. Trubisky looked bad. I was at that game. I watched every second of it. I was in a spot where I was able to watch everything unfold. He looked terrible. And I won't lie. I mean, I left that game that was actually the first time that the Bears have been in first place in like 3 or 4 years, or 4 or 5 years maybe. I think it been even longer than that. But it was one of those, like, I was back at the hotel and I'm just sitting there thinking, I'm like, man, there's just something that doesn't feel right. Trubisky's got to get it figured out. And then he comes out against Tampa Bay and just destroys them. I mean, we all know he went for 6 touchdowns, over 300 yards, so on and so forth. This is the kind of, maybe not quite as bad of a defense, but this is exactly the kind of defense that Trubisky needs to see. And obviously it's on Monday night, so that'll be somewhat interesting just to see how he performs. But like you said, I mean, this is it. This is his opportunity to come out and really, kind of silence things a little bit. Matt Nagy needs to open it up. The Redskins have given up. I think they're averaging right around 30 points a game that they've been giving up. As far as pass defense goes, they've been awful. They've got, I think it's like five or seven QB hits on the entire year. I mean, it's almost been as bad as Denver in terms of they're just not getting the quarterback. They're not affecting the quarterback. This is exactly the kind of game that Trubisky and the offense should be able to use and get things figured out. And that's why, for as skeptical as I am of this offense right now, and as disappointed of a start as I am for that they've had, I'm still looking at them saying, okay, the Bears still have a chance to get the offense figured out, especially going into Minnesota, or against Minnesota, should I say, and then against the Raiders as well. They have a chance to get this figured out, and I think this is the perfect game to do it against. I'm not going to say if he doesn't figure it out now, he's not going to. But what I will say is if he doesn't perform like he should, and I'm not saying he needs to go and have the Tampa Bay game or the Lions game from last year. I'm simply saying go out there, get 2 or 3 touchdowns, get 250, 300 yards. Look competent, look confident, more the point, I think would be the bigger thing there. And just look like a quarterback that belongs in the top half of the league in terms of talking about quarterbacks. And if he can do that, I think that can really help. And I mean, maybe it's just wishful thinking on my part, but I feel like that last throw of the game against Denver hopefully will build a little bit of confidence for him. I mean, I hate that we're even talking about this in year 3, but here we are. Hopefully he can get it figured out. I mean, but again, this is a game where he should. I'm not saying if he doesn't, then all hope is lost. But this is definitely the game where the offense should come out firing on all cylinders. Whether it's the run, whether it's the pass, this is the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you because, like I said before, I mean, Matt Nagy's game plan to me, he ran the ball more. He got that memo. But it wasn't like the playbook was kind of open for Trubisky. It just felt like, he had to just do his job, be a game manager, don't screw things up, which, in the long term, that's really not a good sign because all offseason you talked about, oh yeah, Mitch has progressed, the offense has graduated, we're ready, this offense year 202, we need to get things going, and then now it's through 2 weeks and we still have the same questions about Trubisky and his progression in this offense. I do think he had some good throws. I actually liked the throw to Cohen. I thought it was right in the breadbasket, and the defender just made a better play. He was kind of like that old saying, good offense, better defense. The throw to Gabriel you have to make. That play is designed, if you go back and watch that play, That play is designed for Gabriel to be open right there, and you have to hit that read. And